So, hey, we're going to do something a little bit more interesting this session-wise. We're going to do an interview with Sam Weston. He is the creator, the writer, and the imagination behind Battle Mage Films. You'd probably know him from his most recent film, Glayahan and the Knaves of Industry, which is set in our very own Duluth, Minnesota. So,
yay!
Yay! Yay! Oh,
yeah! And there was much rejoicing.
And there was much rejoice.
Sam, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of a synopsis of Glayahan and the Knaves of Industry?
It's the story of an opportunistic asshole who joins the quest of a delusional man who thinks he lives in a fantasy world. The opportunistic asshole or jerk or whatever you want to say, his name is Mark. He is down on his luck, law school dropout, ends up selling weed to pay the bills because, you know, that's what's available.
I get it.
There's this trope that seems to keep appearing in a lot of Duluth-made movies about mobsters that are in Duluth, where it's not a thing that we really have.
Yeah.
It's got to be something about the 1920s architecture that makes people think, oh yeah, there's got to be mob bosses. I just decided to play on that trope hugely, kind of play it to ridiculous levels.
Sure.
And then the delusional man who thinks he lives in a fantasy world, that's Glayahan of Eastvale, hero of Calicut, vanquisher of the Iron Bulls, champion of justice.
I love the long title that
that is cool.
Oh yeah. All of that has story significance too. If I go into it, it would be kind of spoilery.
I would like to personally thank you for not making the bad guy come from Superior.
Yeah, that would have been
because like there's an early shot in the movie where Mark and Glayahan are talking up on top of the hill, and he's looking out, and he's like, "These are my lands," and I was like, "It's gonna be that he's from here." I know it.
So
because they always say that Superior is the bad place. I was waiting for like the Lion King.
Yeah.
We don't go there.
Don't go to that dark
You know,
area.
for what it's worth, that line never even occurred to me.
No, wow, awesome.
Which, now that I think about it, I'm kind of surprised. I may have to turn that into a meme for the social medias.
Yeah, maybe
the sequel. Inspiration.
Yeah. Part 2, Superior rises up.
Yep.
Oh, man.
The sequel. What challenges do you face for writing a script, for writing a story? Did you do a lot of editing for it, or was it along the lines of, here's the entire premise of it, now let's just fill in the details?
So I actually got my start as a fantasy writer back in like junior high. So I've been writing for years. It's the skill that I've most cultivated. Normally, when I come up with a script or with a story idea, it marinates for a while. I play around with it for a good chunk of time and try to figure out how it's going to work. But with this particular case, it came to me very suddenly at Duluth Superior Film Festival 2017. There was a screening of another local film called Salacia. Features a guy running around Duluth, very mentally handicapped, bipolar disorder, and some multiple personality kind of stuff. The concept just kind of, I started running with the concept, and I was like, you know, I could do my own spin on this kind of idea. It eventually morphed into, during the span of this one screening, it morphed into Don Quixote for the modern age. Let's do that. You know, for the longest time, people had been telling me, hey, you should make a movie. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know what I can make on a budget that is actually doable with the kind of thing that I want to make, because I want to make fantasy movies.
Sure.
Normally, my writing process takes a good chunk of time to figure out what I want to tell and how I want to tell it. But in this particular case, it came to me pretty instantly. The concept came to me that night at work. I started writing down the scripts. I wrote the first 10 pages in a day. First 25 to 30-ish pages. One page basically equals about a minute of screen time. So I wrote about the first 25 to 30 pages in the first week after I came up with it. So basically it was like a month and a half for writing the first draft. To do all of the drafting process, that took a total of about 3 months, which is really fast for my own writing process.
So how many times did you have to go back through and edit and cut and change this around? I suppose it's numerous amounts of time, but then again, I don't know your writing style.
It's interesting because with this particular script, the idea came to me pretty fully formed. There were some things that appeared in the original first draft that did not make it to the second draft, for example. Really, there were just 2 drafts of the script. It's kind of amazing how quick it went now that I think back on it. So the first draft, there was a lot more focus on things like journalism, and there was this old man character, a retired newspaper journalist who had become deranged, and Mark was apparently a vlogger. Mark being the protagonist of this movie, not the title character Glayahan, but the guy who is tasked with following him. And so it was through some draft changes that it eventually became he is co-opted by a drug lord who wants Mark to follow Glayahan around town and basically take care of Glayahan.
Sure.
In that very mob boss kind of way.
Cool.
You said it took about, what did you say, 3 months?
About 3 months, yeah.
To write the script. How long did it actually take to make the film?
From concept to completion, it took exactly a year to get to the premiere.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so literally a year minus a day later after I came up with the concept, I premiered it at the same Duluth Superior Film Festival screening slot.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Full circle.
It's kind of a little poetic in that way. There was a couple months of extra post-production that we did after the premiere, just because I wasn't quite satisfied with some things. So I'd say 90 to 95% of it was done by Duluth Superior Film Fest 2018.
Wow.
That is
That's
so
awesome.
incredibly fast to be able to make a
really good.
full feature-length film.
It's still crazy to think that a year ago we were still filming things.
Yeah.
Back in March of last year.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, what was the biggest challenge you had to making the film?
Man, I haven't even thought about this one. That's a new question. I think the biggest challenge was just getting people on the same schedule. The plan was to film entirely on weekends, which we actually managed to do, just to make it easier for everybody just to know that, hey, if it's a weekend, we're going to be filming Glayahan stuff. But even then, Don, the guy who plays Glayahan, he was my roommate at the time. He actually started a new job working he works as a professional cook. A whole bunch of different restaurants around Duluth at the time. He's now moved to the Twin Cities. He had started a brand new job working at a much nicer kitchen, but this was at the very beginning of filming, so we had to coordinate around his very hectic schedule, and kitchens are notorious for not planning things out at all.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest challenge, I think, was just scheduling in general. We actually had to push back a few weekends just because he wasn't available, and we had filmed all the other things that we needed other people, or that other people appear in, but he doesn't. That was a bottleneck.
Sure.
To get all of that scheduling down, especially for all of the actors that are in there, and still get the film done within a year is, to me, incredibly impressive.
Oh, yeah.
Being able to tell that story, get it all filmed, and then edit it, and I'm sure editing takes an insurmountable amount of time on its own.
Editing was an interesting process, too. So, actually, as we filmed, we edited scenes basically as we got the footage. So the editing process kind of overlapped with filming. All told, I think editing actually took a typical amount of time for how long a film would be edited for.
Okay.
But it was a quicker turnaround because you were doing it at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted you or something.
No, that was exactly what I was kind of wondering, because I don't know how long it would take to be able to edit something after trying to do all those scheduling conflicts and getting everything organized and slotted, and we're going to meet here, then we're going to start filming here.
Well, and editing is a beast that it varies depending on the project. Some things are very straightforward, some things you have to kind of feel it out. In this particular case, I knew exactly what I was going for. I knew what I was the one running the camera, so I knew exactly what shots we had. I knew exactly what takes I wanted to use, and the deliveries of the people that we had on set. So it was really just a matter of plugging things in at that point. Working alongside my co-editor, Laura Cashin, basically we just kind of tag teams, especially on different scenes. And so that also helped make things faster, just by having her help out, to have her add her voice to the process too.
Sure.
How many main characters are in this movie, and are they local guys? Obviously.
How do you define main character?
Okay, how many characters are in this movie, roughly?
How do you define characters?
Oh, for crying out loud! They have a speaking role.
Okay, speaking roles I haven't even counted.
So lots of them is what you're saying.
It's not lots, but it's enough that I don't really have a good count.
Okay.
There's about 6 characters that have top-ish billing.
Okay.
So obviously there's Don Milliken as Glayahan, Kent Dean as Mark.
And these are all local actors.
Some of them have moved on to the Twin Cities since filming, but everybody was in Duluth at the time of filming.
So these are kind of a fun time, and everybody, if you knew who they were, you'd be like, hey, I know that guy.
Oh, yeah. Well, and all of the people that I'm about to mention, still have strong roots here and still bounce back here all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, so Don Milliken as Gleahan, Kent Dean as Mark. There was Ramona Morozis as Madison. She's, she does a lot of news stuff, news producer at CBS.
Okay.
There's David Aldridge as Nathaniel Johnson, the crime lord. Henriette Soderlund as Penelope, his daughter.
That name sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's been in a few things, and I actually found her through my friend Lance Karasty, who he made a movie with her as one of the leading characters back in, finished that in 2016. Anyway, and then also Ian Vincent, who we actually discovered through the casting process. This was his first role, and he's now been in a few other film things too since then. So it's pretty cool to have that introducing credit.
Yeah, kind of a neat thing. Sweet, awesome.
Yeah.
What process was there? What did you have to go through? Not just for like filming in Duluth and like asking, because there are a lot of locations that you use that are very unique to Duluth. Like I'm pretty sure that one of the offices looked like it was in Fitkers. You filmed, I believe, in Glensheen, showing like the outside area, and then like the warehouse and that. Besides, just like the normal process of talking to the city and talking to police and talking to the owners of the properties, what was there on top of that with having a guy run around with like a 4-foot sword in the middle of Duluth?
Don took it upon himself to research any laws regarding open carry of swords in Minnesota. There is nothing on the books.
Nice.
Yeah, so we were actually able to get away with it thanks to the Second Amendment, I think.
Wow.
Kind of. And it also helps that people saw him in costume. It's not like he was very threatening or anything. It was anytime he was in costume with the sword, there was also me with the camera, hanging around him. And, whoever was running sound at the time also around him. So it was very clear that this was a film thing that was happening, and it's not like he's terrorizing people or anything.
Sure.
That's not at all what it looked like. In fact, we actually had a lot of people who were like, yeah!
One of your outtakes has that.
Oh, yeah. So the blooper reel, there's a few times on set that we just had people randomly shouting, yeah! Sword! or, something to that effect. The one that you're referring to from the blooper reel, that was just out on Superior Street. We were across the street from the Holiday Center, and there were people from, I don't even know where. I wasn't looking in the right direction to tell exactly where it was coming from. But people were just like really excited, and they were watching us the entire time we were filming the scene. And during when we were filming that scene, Don was commenting on how they were watching us, and it was just kind of hilarious to me that people were so into this idea.
Sure.
Even if it's just like tangentially, just by seeing it happen.
Yeah, I find it funny that if I'm remembering right, one of the locations that you guys used to be the Last Place on Earth building that now turned into like a craft brewery.
Yeah, Blacklist.
So the hilarious thing is you guys hanging out right in front of this building with a sword that used to sell swords back in the day when the one guy ran it.
So for what it's worth, that thought did not cross my mind.
Yeah.
Honestly, I moved to Duluth after the Last Place on Earth closed. I mean, I had seen some reports about it in the news, but I hadn't really put the face to the name, so to speak.
Yeah, that guy sold all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I hear.
But it was never for us.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's also worth noting regarding the open carry of swords. We actually did have some issues with fake weapons being employed. I was bit character with no lines or anything for a little bit. Just in the back of the Fitkers building, I had an airsoft gun. And this was shortly after one of the mass shootings in February of 2018. So there actually were people who were very concerned, watching from the restaurant that was around that area. Eventually, Henriette, who was with me at the time, we were filming the stuff, she was like, hey, you should put that gun away, like, now, because there's... apparently there were police coming to check, to scope it out.
Yeah?
Yeah, so we got rid of that pretty quick. So actually, the shot that you see in the film where we were filming that particular, or where I had that prop with me, the shot actually does not have me with that prop. So that was after I had put it back in my car, because this was an airsoft gun I had borrowed from friends who loaned it out for the purposes of filming.
Sure.
When Glahan was walking around with the sword, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people wondering, like, this isn't like a short sword. This would be
like a hand and a half.
This is,
Right.
it's like a hand and a half.
it's like a bastard sword.
Yeah.
It's a big sword, and
And he's not just walking around with it just in the
in a sheath. No,
in the
he's
sheath.
like
He's waving it
brandishing it
around.
around.
Oh, of course.
And he's not like, I'm a short guy. I'm 5'6". I'm below average, and Glahan is 6 foot.
So Don Milliken, who plays Glahan, is like, think 5'10", something
Okay,
like that.
so he's tall and he's kind of imposing.
I'd say he's about average height.
Thanks. Now, did the cops ever get called in the area? Did they talk to you like, what are you doing?
No, actually, we had no run-ins with the police. I mean, except for like that one thing that I
Right.
mentioned about the airsoft gun. But no, as far as the sword is concerned, we had no problems with police. It's the amazing irony of it.
That is stunning. A real weapon.
Think about the irony of that one.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's getting all up and pardon the pun, up in arms about this, and it's you got a real sword going here.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is, like, you know, people aren't threatened by real swords because you know, nowadays, you know, the
Threatening.
they're not the weapon of choice.
There you go.
You know,
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
It's if you have a sword, there's a reason you have a sword.
Yeah.
You even have a sword fight on the lake walk, though.
You're either crazy
Fun
or
fact,
filming a movie.
that was his sword with a Nerf sword.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That Nerf held up real well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so my so that was a Nerf sword that I own in my own personal collection.
Yes.
And my friend Jim, who was the one dueling in that scene, I said, "Hey Jim, take my Nerf sword and duel him." and then we had a couple bystanders on the lake walk. Hey, can you guys stand in the background there and just watch? And then when they're done, can you clap? And they did it perfectly.
Nice.
And no, it's amazing just how much community engagement we had. Like there's people that we pulled off the streets just being like, "Hey, we're filming a movie. Would you like to be in it?" And they're like, "Yes, definitely." It's amazing, you know, just how much enthusiasm people had. What's interesting is that it kind of, in a way, mirrors in the film itself. Glahan is kind of this local celebrity. You know, people are like, "Glahan, yeah!" The same thing happened in the actual production. That statement goes a lot deeper than it seems on the surface. The entire production of the film basically mirrors the film's plot itself. You know, it's this crazy idea that people just go along with because they're like, yeah, that's crazy enough to work. In a way, I kind of got Duluth on the nose without even trying.
So how do you go about funding a movie like this? Like, do you pay the actors a stipend per shot, per time that they're in it? Is it a flat pay? How did you begin funding an entire feature film?
Lots of volunteer hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and there's some people who are giving me some flack for this. I am a little embarrassed by this, but it is the unfortunate reality that in Duluth right now, most, if not all, of the cast and crew positions are volunteer-based because we all love the craft, but none of us have the money to actually make it work.
Right.
As like a, you know, an actual paid gig kind of thing. Everybody involved was volunteering their time. We reimbursed them for the cost of materials for things. For example, some of the money that we crowdfunded on Seed and Spark in September and October of 2017 raised about $4,000 that I managed to inflate to about $7,000 through some investment in Bitcoin.
Holy cow! Why
Yeah.
did I get rid of Bitcoin? That was a bad idea.
This of course was
too
before
late.
the bubble collapsed.
You're well past.
But yeah, so we managed to have a decent amount, but not like enough that we could actually do some of the really cooler things that I wanted to do. But we were able to do things like pay for location insurance. That opened the doors to some locations that were like, yeah, we'll let you film here for free, but we need some insurance that you're not gonna like or like if something breaks, then we need to know that it's covered,
Right.
that kind of thing. A lot of the money actually went to the food budget, paying cast and crew, which it's an absolute must on any Battle Mage production, and really on any film production here in Duluth at all. If you're not feeding your cast and crew, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Even without pay, like, food is kind of the pay, in a way.
Which is fair. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want anybody to get hangry about it.
Exactly. It's like food is the bare minimum.
Right.
I was gonna say, I mean, at least you fed the guys, right? I mean,
Oh, of
yeah,
course.
exactly.
Of course, yeah.
Because I'll say this, and I'm pretty sure everybody else would too. You could go a long way with just a home cooked meal for everybody.
Oh,
Or, a pan of lasagna and be like, hey guys, we're gonna film for a few hours, eat up, and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking, I'm like, other than paying them, I'm like, at least you fed them. So
Yeah. And actually, that's one thing that we're working on right now with crowdfunding for a new TV pilot. That's it's got the same basic setup where people are volunteering their time. We're still feeding people.
Yep.
We're still providing lodging for some of the places that we have to go a distance for.
Okay.
Still reimbursing people for the materials.
Yep, that is cool though. I mean, it sounds really fun.
Yeah. It's fun. It is a little stressful to have to worry about the money side of things. I will say that because people weren't paid, I had to kind of dial back the kinds of things I could ask people to do. There's one thing that was written in the script when Mark and Gleahan are infiltrating the warehouse. How it's written in the script that they enter it is there's a window that's slightly ajar, and Gleahan gets on Mark's shoulders, climbs through the window, and crashes. But instead, we had to go with a much safer version, which was going up on the ledge on the backside of the warehouse, and Gleahan sneaking into a dark door.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So it's little,
you gotta.
it's little changes to the script that it does remove some of the comedy, but it's ultimately safer.
Yes,
You know,
I mean
'cause-
that's a big factor too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You brought a different kind of comedy to that scene, though.
That's true.
I wouldn't even have thought, without you saying it, it didn't seem off or anything. It seemed perfectly in with the movie.
Well, and I think part of that has to do with having great actors who, very collaborative spirits who, are like, hey, here's another idea that is we're more comfortable with doing.
Sure.
That still is funny in its own right. So, for example, when Mark gestures at the stairs to the ledge, Gleahan, it's here.
Yeah.
And why didn't you say so before? That's the kind of thing that was a suggestion by Kent for how to work around that the shoulder standing that we couldn't do.
Yep.
Worked out.
Yeah.
So you mentioned before that there's a big community of filmmakers within Duluth. Is there any place that we can go to watch their films online? Is there any forum or group around that we can learn a lot more about the other filmmakers within Duluth?
So as far as like public facing things, there's not a whole lot yet. I am part of this group called the Arrowhead Filmmakers Co-op that is kind of aggregating a lot of the stuff that's happening in Duluth and as well as, across the Arrowhead region. That's a lot of stuff that's currently in the works. And so like there's not a whole lot that we can show at the moment, but there's going to be, we're calling it a yearbook. Basically it's a listing of some of the most prominent things that have occurred around here that are worth checking out. As far as like things I can name drop, it's interesting. There's a few filmmakers who have made feature films that are now, they've just thrown them for free on YouTube because, it's the kind of thing that's like a calling card.
Sure.
So, for example, Nick Hansen, who made Salatium, which is the film that I was watching when I came up with the concept for Gleahan. So Nick Hansen recut that and posted the recut version onto YouTube. Lance Carristy, who made Artificial in 2016, which is the film where I found Henriette Soderlund from, he also posted that to YouTube. Things are becoming available to watch, but not through the ways that you would expect.
Right.
There's other filmmakers that are doing things their own ways. Death Calm Studios recently did Bring Them to Me, which was kind of a Make-A-Wish fulfillment for a kid who, Dexter Ojeda, who had cancer. This was about about a year ago that it came out. You know, they've got DVDs. There's Alex Gutterman, who made this art film called In Winter. It took about 7 years for him to make it. He actually managed to get a distribution deal.
Wow.
So that's available on DVD. It's also available on Amazon Prime. Those are the most high-profile examples I can think of from other filmmakers. But obviously, the talent pool is growing, and so it's just more a matter of finding that, or creating that aggregator in a way.
Sure.
And that's kind of what the Arrowhead Filmmakers Co-op is trying to create in a way.
So, do you have any new adventures planned?
My team and I are crowdfunding for a TV pilot called Errant Worlds. It's about a paladin and her friends, and she is sent on a quest to defeat the demon lord Nersitan. In fighting this demon lord, she, a wizard, and a fighter are all banished to another world. This is a setting where there's a whole bunch of different moons orbiting a gas giant. And so they're banished to another world, and they have to then make their way back across all of the worlds so that they can fight him again. And that's kind of the main thrust of the series.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a thing that we're working on right now. We're very deep into pre-production, and we've got our costume people creating things already while we're crowdfunding for it. We're trying to raise $25,000 this time, which is a much bigger ask than last time, but we're coming along pretty good with it though. Like we've hit 31% and still growing every day.
Is that on Seed and Spark as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so when we go on the internet, where are we going to find that on Seed and Spark? We just type in Battle Mage Films and then it'll pop up? Actually,
I've got it set up that you can go to errantworlds.com and it'll take you right there. That's ERRANTWORLDS.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Do you take PayPal, credit card, pretty much anything?
Seed and Spark takes credit card. I think they might have a PayPal option.
Okay.
But yeah, it's mostly that.
Okay, so now everybody listening to this, remember, you can do this from your phone because we have the technology and we can do that now.
We have the power.
Yes, we do. Where can we find you and everything that you do?
Me personally?
Sure. Or Battle Mage Films.
Yeah, battlemagefilms.com is going to have pretty much anything you need. It's got we've got pages about Glahan and the Knaves of Industry, a videos page that links to some of our best YouTube videos. We're working on an entire section for Errant Worlds, and on top of that, stuff about freelancing. There's plenty of writers on our team, and we're very open to working with people on things like world building, like maps and stuff like that. So, for example, like your campaign, we would be happy to create a map of Arcata and make that.
That sounds awesome. Are you on Twitter and Facebook as well? Instagram at all?
We are on Twitter and Facebook. We do have an Instagram, but the Instagram page, we need to build that up still.
Sure.
So for right now, it's mostly Twitter and Facebook. Battle Mage Films.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you did want to add at the very end of the interview that we just haven't asked the question that you really want to get off your chest?
Not that I can think of.
So,
Yes.
Glahan sequel. Mark gets like a baseball bat.
Oh man. Okay. So
Can it say like mace on it?
That'd be terrible.
that would be hilarious. I actually do have some material in mind for a Glahan trilogy. It's something that I'm kicking around in my head pretty much constantly right now, especially when, the inspiration strikes. It's basically just a matter of enough people are like, hey, we want to see more Glahan, then eventually we'll get around to making it.
Sure. Was this your first film that you ever made, or
Yeah.
have you made? Oh, okay.
Yeah, this was my very first feature film. I've
Okay.
made a few short films beforehand,
Okay.
but Glahan is definitely my best work so far.
Okay. I'm gonna need a copy of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shop.
Where I would say, where can one find a copy of this?
Shop.glahan.com.
Perfect.
There's also a downloads option,
Okay.
which would be download.glahan.com.
Okay.
And that's GLEAHAN.com.
Perfect. That would work out great for me.
Yeah.
And anybody else who's really listening.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Downloads are $10. Got Blu-rays at $15 and $25, depending on how much extra bonus content you want.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, you have to
Obviously,
get the
all of it.
$25 one.
Just spend
Come
spend the $25, get it all.
$25 collector's edition features, let's see, cast commentary, director's commentary, there's a composer's cut, which removes all of the sound except for the music. And it's okay. It sounds cheesy, but I've seen it. It's something that I fell in love with when I watched Over the Garden Wall, which is a Cartoon Network miniseries from 2014. They have
Sounds familiar to me.
it's kind of this like 1910s-ish Americana style horror-ish. Like it's like basically like a Halloween special that took place over 10 weeks.
Oh,
It's feature length. Over the Garden Wall, it's got a lot of really great music. And so what they did with their DVDs was they had an option for a composer's cut, which was basically doing what I've done with the Glahan Blu-rays.
Okay.
Which is to have an audio track that removes all of the dialogue, all of the sound effects, all of that, everything but the music.
that sounds awesome. to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Very artistic.
I would probably just sit and listen to it and just.
It sounds so wonderful. Awesome. We went for the same thing with the Glahan Blu-rays, and
Okay.
I'm very happy with how that turned out. You know, I've watched it a couple times that way, and okay. Not to toot my own horn a little bit, I did compose the music for Glahan. It is something that I take music very seriously.
Okay.
Grew up in a choir background, and so this is something that, and Minnesota has a very strong choral tradition. Take music very seriously, and you know the fact that it's actually interesting when we weren't able to find a good composer to do the kind of stuff that I was hoping we could do with Glahan. I ended up composing the music myself. It's more out of necessity really than anything. You know, a lot of the things that I ended up doing, like I actually had a lot of hats on this movie. A lot of the things that I ended up doing were not because I wanted a certain amount of control. It's more just because nobody wanted to step up and I knew how to do them, kind of. You know what? I'm just going to do it myself.
Yep. Sometimes that is what it has to be done, but
Unfortunately.
yeah, it's like you got to do what you got to do to get the job done.
Although it did lead to some interesting, since I was running camera and directing,
Yep.
it meant that I missed some shots that I would have liked to have gotten.
Okay.
For example, you know, and partly that comes from not writing a shot list. I wore a lot of hats. I don't like the fact that I wore a lot of hats, but it ended up happening anyway.
That will happen. So how about that infield fly rule? I mean, y'all up on that?
Infield fly? What?
Never mind.
Yeah, it's one of his jokes. Just let him go.
Oh.
It's a baseball
this.
thing.
Oh.
He doesn't even like baseball.
I don't.
I don't even know what baseball
Not even
is.
kidding.
So,
I watch hockey.
bunch of nerds.
He's a bunch of nerds from the DM.
I know. Yeah, everything.
We
Well,
can't get through one recording.
Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed this interview with our very own Sam Weston of Battle Mage Films. And we will see you in a couple of weeks for another episode of Free Roll 5. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
What was making noise?
What was that?
Okay. He knew. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
The cat is an asshole.
Okay. Let's
All
see.
right.
So,
We need paper. I told you we need paper to write down questions.
The pencils are probably
Yeah.
somewhere back here.
Come on.
I don't need no paper.
boy.
Well, this would have been
You're the
like.
manager of this. Let's
Oh
go.
my
You
goodness,
don't have your
Sandra.
people prepared.
Can't you just write down your phone? Like write a text to yourself or something.
It's going to involve poop if I do that.
Oh God. It started.
This is already got
Better
downhill.
get it out now because we can't be.
No, don't tell him to get it out now. He's talking about poop. He needs to keep that in.
Their own.
welcome, my friends. We're all 13 years old.
I'm actually 11.
Poop and dicks. And boobies.
You know, if you
Oh wait, I'm sorry, Aiden. I'm sorry. I should have done your language. Dongers. Dongers.
Dongers. That's what they're called. There's your paper. Are you going to write a question down? What are you doing?
All right, let's go.
Carolyn, well,
Do your thing, Aiden.
hang out with you people.
What do you mean, you people?
Hey, come on now. Let's not get into this again.
There are multiple sheets
Hello
of paper
and
there.
welcome.
To a Topic a Month podcast. Where I don't even
Oh
know.
boy.
Yeah, you.
You got a stylist?
Oh,
Looks broke
I
to
know.
me.
It's like NASA invented it.
You know the Russian? Did you know that the Russians just use a pencil?
I know.
I don't know what's
I'm
going
aware.
on here.
I know everything about
How
the
many false
USSR.
starts is this?
It's like 9.
Starts.
And did you start with hello and welcome? Are we doing that one?
No. We're not doing that one. Okay.
I'm confused.
Did we just go like? Did we have a crossover episode right there?
Yes, we did.
Hopefully not.
We did.
Do I got to do my thing now?
No, please.
No, please.
Okay.
We have a guest.
Okay, we're starting.
Put the dicks away.
Starting now.
Nope, she's gone.
And I'm back.
That was quick.
Scene. They don't do that, do they?
That's my first question.
Maybe.
Not in
Audio format.
Not in film.
Sam, this is audio format. Shrugging your shoulders just doesn't do it.
I don't know. The
is
silence.
I can hear
Kinda
the
work,
silence
yeah.
on that.
Okay,
one.
fine. Audible shrug.
This is what happens when we get professional. They can just talk over your shit.
Yeah.
True.